No, so tonight I've just put together a simple presentation here on some of the cars that are available at the moment, electric vehicles, and what we're expecting to come on to Australia and that soon. It's based on what's going to be available in Australia, because we probably only see a limited number of electric vehicles available, but if you're going to buy an electric vehicle, well, it has to be in Australia, doesn't it? So it's really based on what's going on here. So at the moment the talk is all about the Model 3, the Tesla Model 3. It's their volume selling model, which is going to be released in 2018. Well, that'll be the time by the time it gets to Australia on those. So a novel way to launch a vehicle on those is to have reservations for it, a little bit like Kickstart, but much larger, isn't it? And we had 134,000 reservations have been placed at that time. And I'm not sure when this slide was taken, but it would have been a month or two ago, so that number has increased. So why go electric? What's the advantages of an electric vehicle? Well, the first thing is the vehicle has zero emissions on those. That's because it's powered by electricity. So its emissions that it's produced comes from the electricity that's produced. And if you have a solar system, come around a bit, okay?
No,
if you have a solar system,
sure. Can't see a thing.
Oh, okay. If you've got a solar system and that on your house, well then the two obviously go together, and you can actually produce zero emissions on those if you're generating your power from solar on those, and other sources of electricity as well, but that's where the emissions is coming from. When you drive an electric car, you notice the difference between it and a petrol car on those. Less vibration. The petrol cars have improved enormously over the years than those, but they're still a lot quieter and smoother than that with an electric vehicle. The acceleration is quite smooth. They're very good for city driving, stop-start type driving on those, because they don't idle. Some of the new petrol cars don't either, but they have regenerative braking, and they're very good in city traffic. When you get an electric car moving into country driving, and those as much, that's when the limitations of the electric vehicle at the present stage comes to be. Because your fuel consumption in an electric vehicle is actually higher on the highway than it is in the city, which is probably the reverse of a petrol car. But it's got more to do with the speed that you're driving at and the extra drag and energy used in driving, highway driving. So very good for city driving and those, and some country driving as well. The fuel costs, the actual energy used to drive the car, is much lower in an electric car than a petrol car. It can vary, it can be a quarter, a fifth, it's around that sort of level on those. So your energy cost in running the vehicle is lower. And then the maintenance cost as well, of course, as the vehicle is lower. It has less moving parts. Once it's built and designed correctly, there's very little to go wrong with them. No cooling systems and those. Well, the cooling systems on some of them are very basic, but they don't require the cooling of what a petrol car does. Exhaust systems, other systems that are used on the cars. The braking system is simpler because most of the braking is regenerative. You still need to have friction brakes on an electric car. But all these things add up to a lower running cost, lower maintenance cost on those. So in going to electric, you've got to look at why would you do it first, and these are some of the main reasons that the electric cars will eventually dominate. Some of the cars that are available now, which you can buy at the moment. The most common electric car at the moment is the Nissan Leaf on those. It's available in two battery versions. 24 kilowatt hour run gives you 135 kilometres of range, and they've released a 30 kilowatt hour version with 170 kilometre range. So on those, though I don't think there are any of these ones in Australia. It was released last year overseas. So you had two versions of the Nissan Leaf available. Fast charging is included with the car, and new car price about $38,000, and there's quite a few on the second-hand market on those if you're looking for a second-hand car.
What's that acronym included?
Oh, okay. This stands for the fast charging system, which is called CHAdeMO. It's a Japanese standard on those that's used for fast charging. We have 2 of those fast charging stations in Melbourne, and maybe 3 now. But I know of 2, which enables a car to charge in 35 minutes.
Because you need like high voltage type supply to the supply point, don't you?
CHAdeMO is what we call a DC charging system. The charging stations, there's 3 of them that I know. There's one at Coburg, on those at the town hall there, a fast charging station, and there's another one at Swinburne. And those, they have a CHAdeMO fast charging station. But I think there's another one being built and installed in the southeastern suburbs on those. So these fast charging stations, I mean, the obvious places to put a fast charging station would be along the freeways on those, or highways, because that's when you need to be able to charge quickly and extend your journey. But more likely they've gone in places where the funding isn't being available and where they've been able to put them in. So that's the Nissan Leaf. The next car that's come along, which released last year, is the Tesla Model S. On those, it's also available in several battery sizes and battery variants. But you're now moving more up into the luxury car market on those. So we have a better car here, a high priced car on those. And so in Australia, they're available about between $100,000 and $197,000 on those. It's off the Tesla Australia website on those for the pricing of the cars. They also have fast charging on them available using Tesla's own supercharge network on those. So you can travel from Melbourne to Sydney at the moment on those, fast charge with them, and up into Brisbane as well, up and along the Hume and up through the Princess Highway. So Tesla's installing fast charge systems around the East Coast and that at the moment, and those to cover all those areas. At the moment, we only have a choice of 2 cars on those and such. There's more cars available in the second-hand market. I'll put in the 3rd car. There's 3 in that actually available at the moment as electric type cars. Bmw is the i3. Its range comes in pretty much in the middle, 160 kilometres. It also has a fast charge system on it as well, which is the Society of Auto Engineers. It's a different fast charging standard on those. Has anyone here got a Bmw i3?
I went for a driving one about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
The next model up was 78,500 right at the end of the year. Last back in 78,500.
So what's the next model that you're talking about?
It's a longer, bigger battery. I think it was a range. Obviously a longer range. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, okay, because actually I think that second model that you're talking about, I've got it in the next year's cars, being released next year, so it sounds like it, yeah, it's very true.
Nissan's been out big announcement at the end of September.
Yes, and Nissan also, I thought on the slide show here, is also releasing longer range cars as well on those. So at the moment, Bmw i3 on those, around $63,000. And that available. And then there's the scooters, like what I've just driven out the front there. On those, I've included this one because there's quite a few around on the second-hand market. On those, $3,000 to $6,500. They have good range on those, and there's also a fast charge option available on them. On those, if you want that. The fast charge actually uses J1772, which there's 40 or 50 charging stations around Melbourne on those, so it doesn't require a fast charging system or the fast charging units because it's a smaller battery. It can charge rapidly from the standard type chargers. So that's what's available at the moment. And so what do we need to do now to bring electric cars mainstream? Where are electric cars going? And there's two most important things that we're going to see happening over the next few years that are going to make electric cars more viable and on a larger scale. It's been reduction of the cost of the battery on those. The battery cost is coming down considerably. I mean, by factors of 2 or 4 times. You know, they're about a quarter of the cost of what they were 5 or 8 years ago. So the battery price is definitely coming down, and it's one of the major components in that of the electric car. So that's what's going to make these cars a lot more viable. As the cars then take off and they start to be manufactured, then there'll be scale of volume, and then the price of the cars and that will come down. We can see from the cars that have been released in 2018 that they're looking at larger volumes and those and lower prices. On those, see, we've got General Motors here that's releasing their Volt EV, which will be in 2018. Unfortunately, won't be coming to Australia on those because they're not doing a right-hand drive version of it. Well, they haven't say they're going to release one. But you know, that'll be a mass-produced car. It'll be around the $37,000 price range. And then the other thing that needs to be set up is charging infrastructure on that too. I know, so people will be able to, they'll feel more secure if they're able to charge at other places than at home. So solar power charging infrastructures, and that have been put into other countries, and those they would suit Australia as well. So maybe we'll start to see solar take off on a larger way, and also the charging infrastructure and that for the cars as well. You know, then we put along highways, for instance, and then the solar then can then charge the cars that come through on the highways. So, 2017, what's coming along in the future? Of course, here's the Model 3. Nissan Leaf. Nissan are releasing a larger range version. At the moment they have a 24 kilowatt hour and a 30 kilowatt hour version. Well, 2017 they've already announced a 40 kilowatt hour version, and they've got prototypes, of course, of larger batteries on those that they've been talking about. There was a prototype car that was shown at the Tokyo Auto Show, which had a larger battery with 60 kilowatt hour, and it was coming up into the range, you know, of the Teslas. But this one has actually been announced, this particular car. So looking at a range there of 220 kilometres on those, but even then, most people don't travel that sort of distance in that in a day. On those, like the city driving, but you know, anyway, the cars are now coming up with their, all the manufacturers are looking at releasing longer range electric cars. Bmw is releasing a later version of their i3 on those, and I was looking on the website. There was one of the car review people was saying that, you know, it wasn't a very flashy name, but you know, the i3 74AH, which I suppose means ampere hour. So maybe they'll come up with a better name for it, and that when it's going to be released. And so this car, they were quoting on the website $65,000. So I think you said 70. We're in the 70s.
Yeah, that was the one that I asked them quite a lot, 78.5.
Okay.
I don't know what got lost in translation, but
Oh yeah. Well, so it'll be somewhere around that price range, isn't it? It's always when the car hasn't been released. I mean, you know, it's very hard to come up with a fixed price on that, isn't it? On those, but this one's being released next year on those. So BMW is releasing this longer range version, and hopefully this one will come to Australia on those. I haven't been told it's coming here yet. And then Tesla Model 3 on those, which is due to be launched. Won't be until the following year, 2018, on those that we'll be looking at this car. But it's Tesla's volume model. So I was looking on one of the Australian car sites, and they were looking at it would be 52,000 on those was the price that they were looking at for the car when it comes into Australia. No, so 345 kilometre range, and that they're quoting on this one. and of course able to use the supercharge, the Tesla fast charging system on those, so it could be used for highway travelling as well. Melbourne to Sydney are all up the east coast at this stage, but by 2018 Tesla would have extended more of their fast charge network. But, this is what we're seeing some of the volume cars that are coming through. So these are some of the cars that will drive electric cars into the future. And then of course there's also many other manufacturers as well that of course are looking at the cars, all the major manufacturers such as Bmw just made a big announcement on those. A lot of the European manufacturers, Audi, the Korean manufacturers, Kia and Hyundai have announced electric cars. All the ones that are coming out of China on those, there's big volume there. So we'll see quite a few of them coming through. Mercedes has also announced a range of electric cars, at least 4 models on those. So it's going to be very interesting. We're now starting to see the manufacturers taking this seriously on those, and then more cars coming through. And some of those cars will come to Australia. As I've really just listed some of the ones that we know, and those are to be released here. The Nissan Leaf, for instance, on those with a range of 220 kilometres on those, and quite a snazzy little 4-cylinder car. And those, it's going to be up there and continuing on in its volume sales. And it will have the Model 3, and those competing against it. Another one coming through. So really looking forward to see some of the new cars coming through. So I've kept this presentation tonight, fairly straightforward as to what's available on it today. If you've got any other questions or on that, because there's members of the EV group here on those, and if you've want to ask any other questions about cars or anything else to do with EVs, we're happy to answer any questions there. I'll put it over the floor first, at the back.
I'm a bit surprised the French haven't come up with something.
The French, yeah. Well, what's happening in France is Nissan and Renault have an alliance on those, because I think Nissan own Renault, and so Renault have come up with a Zoe on those, which is a French car, and those, and it's of course the #1 car selling in France, but Nissan decided not to export it around the world. They are interested in exporting the Leaf. So because of the joint ownership of those companies, we haven't seen the Renault Zoe, it come into, hasn't gone into the US or into others. It's only sold in Europe.
Did you say it was the highest selling car in France?
Yes,
Wow.
the Renault Zoe.
And that's all electric?
The highest selling electric car. Not the highest selling, I should say electric car. It's the highest selling electric car.
I was wondering what the penetration is like in other countries. Obviously we'll be dragging behind a bit.
Yeah, it's still fairly low on those. Not a lot of penetration on those, so it's still quite low. Yes.
Haven't got any word about government incentives or anything to help us out with these things, have you?
Okay, no, there isn't.
No mention of the federal election, is there?
There hasn't, has there? No, I haven't heard any mention of any incentives in that for electric vehicles. Has anyone else really heard anything come through? It's funny, it seems the interest in electric vehicles is coming more from community, and then going to the next stage, which is local government, and then maybe state government has also shown some interest with some electric vehicle trials, and then when you get to federal government, there's no interest at all. So it seems to be coming from the bottom up, and eventually the governments will have to listen to what the people want. So that tipping point hasn't come yet.
Yeah, Turnbull was, or maybe still is, a price owner, I think, and he did visit the Tesla factory, but that obviously hasn't gone.
No, that's true. And I think they said they would like Tesla to come to Australia and produce cars here.
Well, there's some car factories ready to go.
Yes, we've got them here.
Vacant.
I believe they do have one each Tesla.
Oh, yeah. Who has a Tesla?
I believe so.
Malcolm Turnbull.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so it's upgraded from the price.
I think like most of these things, it's a tipping point. Eventually public interest will arise, and the government, they'll flip. I reckon there'll be a big change. We don't know when that would come through.
But what I think is quite interesting is
Yeah.
the Netherlands government and the German government have announced no fossil fuel cars to be sold in 2025 and 2020. So I think that's an interesting worldwide thing, and something like California does. So there's the same in other countries.
Very true, isn't it? My comment on that is, it's interesting to see, well, some of these countries now are really taking electric cars seriously, and they're coming up with statements like this. And I think it will drive it because the vehicle manufacturers then have to produce the vehicles for those countries, and then the flow will flow into countries like Australia and other countries that haven't shown any interest. So in some ways, yeah, we'll benefit from what's happening overseas on those. It just has to flow through, but still no interest yet in Australia.
Could I follow on from that one? Because I forget where I saw it, but it was a rather frightening article that if you buy an electric car in Victoria and you charge it from coal-fired mains power, it's a worse polluter than a petrol or diesel car.
It's possible.
Now, that means that if our inestimable government was to say, oh, right, no fossil cars after a certain time, it would actually be an environmental disaster. And the good thing at the moment is that most of the people who've got electric cars are also conscious of this, and they charge them in a green way, so to speak. But if they don't, it's not necessarily going to be a good thing. Is there an update on that?
You know what the source of your comment was?
No.
Because I have seen a similar thing which says the electric car running on the lawn is less polluting than a petrol car.
It's running on pavement.
At least.
I guess one of the articles was written by somebody who's got an interest in coal, and the other person's got an interest in solar.
Very true, isn't it? Yes, you need to look at the article, and then
Yeah.
we look at them and say, well, are these figures correct, and and that as well. So it's true, isn't it? Yes, it's fairly debatable, and that issue I think is debatable.
I think Ross Garner.
Calculations on the national, whatever it is, greenhouse gas protocol. It's not correct. Because it'll.
Well, the thing about Victoria is it runs brown coal.
Okay.
On recharging and all calculated.
It's certainly a myth that needs busting, though.
Yes, that's true. Well, I had another bit of news that fits somewhere along this line that came through last week. On those, it was Saudi Arabia, when those wanted a new wanted a new power plant built out of one of the major cities on those to supply electricity, of course. And they put a tender out for this new power plant somewhere in Saudi Arabia, and a Chinese company, the Chinese company that makes the solar panels. Does anyone remember the name of the large?
Yingli?
Yeah,
JA?
I'm quite sure on that one. It might be Suntech on those. So
Suntech's
anyway, the
expensive.
particular Japanese company on those who won the Chinese company won the tender on those to produce this power plant. So here Saudi Arabia has all this oil on those, and the solar power plant came in cheaper than gas and also than oil to provide this power plant. So I think we're seeing solar energy continuing to expand, and that around the world on those, and that's probably where the emissions is going to be. One of the ways the emissions are going to be attended to.
Oh, yeah.
There's electricity changing the solar.
Go through Spain or France to see the huge wind farms and solar farms. And look, again, we've missed the boat.
Yes, I think we've missed the boat on developing that technology. We're probably going to now have to import it from overseas, aren't we, to have it here. So Australia's industry is behind.
A lot of that technology has went to the States. Some of their leading engineers to work in solar plants, and there was a program on telly. A young guy moved over about 8-9 years ago, running an oil for designed it and built. So that's how it's done again.
Yeah, the opportunities aren't here.
Yeah.
Maybe up the back, did you want to say something?
Yeah, there is a number of things. I'm just starting on a electric vehicle conversion. It's based on a Holland Marina, 26 kilowatt DC motor. It'll go about 100 k's, 14 kilowatt hour battery, the lithium-ion batteries.
Mhm.
It's a budget of about 16,000. And cheapest part of the car.
Yes.
So that's another way to do it, and that's for a city car. I'm not saying for a country car, but for a city car.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? Well, we've seen them through our group, a lot of home conversions and that being done. When you aren't able to buy these cars and they're not available on those, you have to make one and that yourself. And that's true. I've got a Ford Capri that's been converted to electric on those. It has about 100 kilometre range. And those, so yeah, we've seen those too. But I was considering that people would be buying cars. Yes.
Any commercial UI commercial
Yes.
everything yourself.
Yes, one of the companies producing commercial kits is EV West, which is in California. They produce a kit, well, they produce half a dozen kits which are for different cars. They've got a Volkswagen kit, they've got one for one of the Toyota cars, they have a Porsche kit on those for the old 944s. And yeah, they produce the complete kit for it, and they CNC the adapters for the gearbox, the mounting adapter, and provide the whole thing as a kit with an AC drive system. So there are kits like that, and there are also lower cost kits coming from China, which are DC motor kits. So yeah, there are a few around.
Well, it's sort of a related question. I've not to get an electric car, and only if I can drive my solar panels, I get paid 60 cents feed-in hour for 7 years, so there's no way I'm putting more panels on it. Two questions. I've been speaking to the local Labour member to see if there's any feasibility of the government paying us out on those things, and even if we get, say, 70% of what I'm looking at 7 years. I'm interested if anyone has pursued that idea with everyone and how far they got. And the second thing is, if I can't do that, I believe it's possible to put a separate set of solar panels on just to charge my car.
Yes.
How difficult is that? Because I'm worried that the charging system is going to be driven by panels which are fluctuating voltage and fluctuating current, and it might all blow up. Is there a simple solution for that?
Well, yes, isn't it? It's something that you have to look at, almost like an electronic engineering assignment. Look at it, how you're going to do it, and because yours is a unique setup. First thing that comes to mind is I have another friend who's also on the 60 cents a kilowatt hour tariff, and he has an electric car and that he drives around. And of course, what he does is he charges his car at night. He sells the 60 cents per kilowatt hour during the day that his solar system is using, and then he charges his car from off-peak at night. So that's just an economic thing to do, because your off-peak rate is 17 cents. I think it is kilowatt hours typically what they offer you on off-peak. So he does the opposite. He charges his car at night. Sorry.
11 cents through power shop.
11. Oh, okay. So yeah, you have this lower price off-peak rate. And then also, yes, the second system on those, which is just used just for the car, on those would be a plausible way to do it. On those, it would still be expensive. You may consider having a battery backup, like having battery storage on that second system. So you can charge the battery while your car is not away, and then when your car's back, charge the car. But yeah, it's becoming fairly complicated.
Would the standard charging system be able to handle the fact that the voltage is sort of stagnated as it returns to the hot water would get rid of that?
They usually do handle variations in voltage. Most of these chargers use switch mode power supplies, and switch mode power supplies will work over a wide range of voltages. It'll vary depending upon the power supply, switch mode power supply that's used in your charger. Some of them will work down to 90 volts, and up to 250. That's the sort of voltage range that they can operate up over, because they're actually designed to be used in the US as well as in Australia. It depends upon the charger that's fitted to the vehicle. So yes, chargers can handle wide ranges of voltage.
Is there anyone else done that sort of thing in this week?
Beg your pardon?
Is there anyone around here that has done tried doing that? Running off electrical system?
No, I haven't. And those. I'm looking for one of my electric vehicles. I'm looking at putting up some panels and having a battery storage system. And what I would call that is a basic DC system. So in other words, the whole system runs on DC. It stores in batteries, and then it charges the vehicle battery directly DC. And they're not using the charging system that's already in the car. So a complete separate DC system. That can be designed, because then it has to be designed around the vehicle and that you have. So yes, it can be done.
What's the view on the future of hybrids, like the outline the jet and the Camry?
I think the hybrids is really going to expand and the way to go on those, because people like the fact that you've got a hybrid, you've got a car which has a longer range on those, and it can be used electric for whatever its electric range is. It can be anything from 20 to 80 kilometres, so that's quite a usable amount. The actual vehicles themselves, some things I don't like about them is because they're overcomplicated on those, and you've now got two engine systems and that in them, which makes them expensive and compromise them that way. But your hybrid cars are taking off, and they are showing the benefits of electric to people. People then realise that a car can be driven on an electric motor because they have a hybrid, and runs on electric sometimes. And so yeah, there's a number of issues in that with there. But I think the hybrids in that will continue to grow in the market.
You go to the airport and have a look at the taxis, you've got 80% the Toyotas and the Camrys, the Honda, so they've taken over from the Fords, from the gas fuel. And I think if you look at some of the performances, we're looking to go from about 7 litres per 100 kilometres down to around 4.5 through the hybrid system. So there's still a company coming on.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll continue to do quite well, and that the hybrid cars are. They've improved over the years. I know when I had a friend who was looking at buying a Prius, one of the earlier Priuses, they actually bought a Toyota Yaris because the petrol consumption of the two was almost the same on those, and the Prius was a lot more expensive than those as well. So also the difference in price didn't matter. But the hybrids have improved enormously on those, and they're also going ahead with a lot of hybrid cars around.
Where do you see the battery technology going, and what do you think will be sort of the maximum people get in a car?
Well, what we're seeing happen at the moment is continuing improvements in lithium-ion batteries. So the lithium-ion battery is still the mainstay of electric vehicles, and it's been steadily improved over the years. As in reduction in cost on those, the pricing has come down enormously, and also the current capability and reliability and life of the batteries also is improving. So all the cars that we're seeing at the moment are based on lithium-ion technology, but there's also a number of other technologies that are being developed that are coming. There's a couple of them coming into commercial use in that at the moment. On those are sodium-ion, which is another lithium-ion battery, or another metallic-ion battery. On those, the sodium-ion battery is now starting to be used in solar systems and moving into other markets. So we'll continue to see other new batteries in that developed. So it's not really sure yet to see what's going to be the next batteries. There are batteries that are available at the moment in cars that have over 1,000 kilometre range on those that have already commercially available. So there was an Israeli company that did a aluminium air battery that was over 1,000 kilometre range, and that in a car. So we'll continue to see. It's the ones that get commercialised and really come into the market. But the battery technology is a big part of it, and it's going to probably going to continue to drive it.
Any thought you're on end of life of your battery or not? Disposing of them or recycling them?
Yes, I know. So with these batteries in these cars, what are we going to do, when they come to end of life? So there's a few things that can be done with them. If it's a lithium-ion battery, which all these cars are, they can be then repurposed into a battery storage system, and that for home use, or they could go into a commercial battery storage system. There are companies already at the moment that are repurposing the Nissan Leaf batteries on those that are coming out and putting them into solar storage. Well, let's just say a typical Nissan Leaf has a battery life of 8 to 10 years. Well, then once that battery is repurposed into energy storage, which is what I'm talking about with solar, it'll then have a similar life again, another 8 to 10 years. So it can be then repurposed into that second stage. And then the other idea, of course, is to recycle them on those, to recycle, the elements in that out of the battery.
What has to be done to the batteries to repurpose them? Why couldn't they be repurposed and put back in a car, for example?
Oh, okay. What has to be done with them is when the battery is working in a vehicle, on those like the ones in the Nissan Leaf, the car can be drawing typically 80, 100, 120 amps. So the use of the battery in a vehicle is quite a high energy use for that battery. So when it's repurposed into battery storage on those, it doesn't have to be able to reduce such high currents. So what happens to these batteries as they age is that their actual maximum current output drops off. Their internal resistance rises and they can't produce the high currents necessary to drive the vehicle anymore. Well, they still do. The range steadily drops on those because you're doing a bit of highway driving, you're drawing high currents on those, and the battery is not being able to sustain those high currents. So what you notice is the range starting to drop. But when they're put into energy storage on those, they run them at lower currents and they can continue to operate on those for many more years. So that's the main difference. Yeah. So they're not really altering the battery at all. They're just putting it into a different use.
I would like to be able to use the batteries for my car at night to power the house because it's a lot more cost effective, obviously. I just got a new Leaf. I'd like to be able to do that. Is there anyone done it, or do you know of anything?
Yes, it has been done. Nissan have released a particular system like what you're talking about to use your Nissan Leaf battery on those for energy storage for your house.
Yes.
On those, they produce a complete system with software and full backup. The system at the moment is being trialled in England by one of the main power companies or power manufacturers. Power supply utilities is a better way to put it. So that system is available, but it's not available in Australia and not approved to be used here. So this is probably something that will eventually come in the future on those. So talk to your Nissan dealer and tell them that you want it. Write a few letters and everyone else, and maybe then they'll move forward for Australia. Yes.
At the moment, there is no recycle program for lithium-ion batteries. And in my research, what I've seen, there is any plan because the technology keeps changing and we're looking to recycle. So there's a lot of people talking about that we have quite a big problem in the future. It's nice to say we're going to put them into homes that will lack, but they aren't going to generate very quickly in that position. And at the end of life, but still at the end of life, there is nothing we can do with the battery.
That's interesting, because I've just seen an article, there's a mob in Europe in almost 100% recycling dairy production.
There's one in Europe, and there's all
Well, the technology's there, it can be done.
Yes, so he's correct. There's none available in Australia. There's nowhere in Australia I know where you can recycle lithium-ion batteries on those. And I know there's one company that's looking at storing lithium-ion batteries and then shipping them back to Asia on those, like in containers. So yeah, they're looking at this issue now. It's not available. The lithium-ion battery side is not available in Australia on those, and so I don't know what some of the recycling companies and those, or like Sims Metals and some of these other, what they're doing with their lithium-ion batteries in Australia. But currently there's none available here. It would have to be shipped overseas.
Well, can I take a slight diversion? I was listening to the radio earlier this week on the ABC, and they were talking about the government is concerned that with the introduction of more electric cars and hybrids, that they are losing money on their fuel taxes, and that there was some thought, and I don't know who put this thought forward, of introducing a system where people would have to report how much they drove a vehicle per year on their tax return, and basically charging people a fee for the kilometres used as a way of gaining revenue to pay for the maintenance of roads.
Okay. Well, I agree. I think. Do you want to be finished? Yeah, I agree. I think this is quite an issue, isn't it? On those, so it's going to be. We're going to look at government policy on those, and they'll have to work out, hopefully, an equal and fair way on those of how they're going to tax and organise this system. On those, I suppose we've seen the petrol tax and that at the moment, but I'm going to digress a bit too, and there's things like subsidies. There's a lot of subsidies on, like agricultural has subsidy on diesel and things like that, and I would like to see some of these subsidies disappear on those, then to drive people to look at, well, what is the actual cost on those of these fuels on those, because we're actually subsidising fossil fuel at the moment. But that, of course, is another issue, isn't it? As to, well, the roads are probably one of the major costs of the country on those, the road systems and that, and how to tax people on that for it.
So one of the things is electric cars and lighting, significantly lighting.
Yeah.
And there's one Elon Musk versus victories, the insurance in America. The policy of lighter, they do less damage than an accident. Therefore, they need to drop their insurance rates for electric cars.
Okay.
And he succeeded in that argument.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
So the Union of Concerned Scientists, I think, says on average an electric car is 1/3 and something 30% lighter than electric cars. So on that whole road wear and tear, and I agree with, I think the pressure is going to come from municipal governments who will have to pay for a lot of the road costs for wear and tear. But it's worth their while encouraging people to get their electric cars in municipality just to reduce that cost.
Okay.
The other thing that is relevant to cost is that at the BZ airport, we're going to get talking electric vehicles. He said they have over 1,000 deaths per year, so the illness from petrol vehicles. So electric vehicles will take that cost and the illness, not the signals on the death. That would be 2,000 cost out of the health system.
Okay. Yeah, some of these hidden costs. Yeah, some of these hidden costs that people don't realise and that are there.
As long as it's not Hazelwood doing the charging.
Yeah, the few have ended up in hospital after Hazelwood, especially after their fire, they had a coal scene. Well, I was in South Australia last month, and I heard on the news, they said it had been a fairly windy day on those, and it said on the news, it said 85% of South Australia's electricity came from renewable energies yesterday on those, so I was quite surprised to hear that. Yeah, well, in Europe there are days that are over 100, where Germany has to shed electricity into other parts of Europe because they're generating more renewable. Sorry, what did you want to say? Yeah.
I've had days in South Australia, but I can't get them.
Have that.
Don't take like most.
So one point that makes to my mind is it's not hard to achieve. If South Australia can achieve 100% renewable on some days, and you consider the amount of work that they've done in South Australia, which is not a lot on those, then any other state in that could do it as well on those. We've seen probably a greater amount of renewable energy in South Australia than in Victoria on those, greater adoption, but still not a large amount. So it is possible to have renewable energy to run on.
Any thoughts on the hydrogen electric cars that are starting to come out now?
Okay, so the hydrogen electric cars, on those, so we've seen them come out on those. Toyota has been one that's been pushing the hydrogen car, and those especially into places like California, where the emissions standards and that are extremely high, and they're looking for zero emission vehicles on there. The hydrogen cars and as such, they are electric on those, and what they run, they use your fuel cell system in those to run an electric motor on those, but they have inherent inefficiencies in creating hydrogen on those, so you've got to create hydrogen as well before you then place it into the vehicle. So I haven't looked at the figures, but there's inefficiencies there on those, and significant ones. And then hydrogen also is a very difficult gas to store on those because it's a very small molecular particle on those. It's able to seep out of steel tanks and things like that. It's a very difficult thing to store, and it has to be stored under high pressure. So you also have storage problems in that in hydrogen in vehicles. So I don't think they work as well as a purely electric vehicle, and using electricity from start to finish. On those, there's a number of issues with hydrogen vehicles.
Most of the hydrogen supply comes with electric vehicle.
Beg your pardon?
Most of the hydrogen supply comes sourced from electric vehicle.
Oh, okay.
So you've still got the greenhouse gas problems, and you're extracting the natural gas.
Okay.
And the Humble system uses a very expensive system to build.
Yeah, so I haven't heard anyone who's really looked at it, who's really come up with anything positive much about the hydrogen system. I'm so surprised that it has been implemented in California that they even bothered to try.
I think it's because the Japanese thought they could get it from seawater.
They could from seawater?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the reason they wanted it. And that way they didn't have to pour water. But they realised it was more expensive to break the seawater up and oxygen and hydrogen than taking it to natural gas. So that was the problem. Cost production.
Yes, that's true. So while it goes back also to solar dynamics starts to come in with it too. We're now seeing solar coming in at lower costs than natural gas in electricity production. So there's another dynamic that's going to change the whole picture again too. The production of solar energy, a form of renewable energy, has really reduced. It's dropped on those where it's now it's now competing with gas, with the fast, where they're using gas systems like for energy loads, peak loads, things like that. Some of the gas power plants is coming down to that sort of pricing. Yes.
The energy gets here for ourselves, I assume that they're just not satisfactory at this stage.
That's true, yes. Another technology that's coming into energy storage, and that is the flow battery or the redox battery. So instead of storing the energy in plates and metal plates like within a battery, it stores the energy within liquids on those, which may be within a tank. And then the liquids are then fed through a power module on those to generate electricity. We call it a flow battery because it flows through as liquids. The flow battery has been steadily improving on those and is really moving into the storage market, like large energy storage market for grids and for that area. We haven't seen it come yet into electric vehicles as such because of the size and the energy density. The weight at this stage is a problem. The energy density if the weight is too high than a flow battery. But that could be another technology which we could see come in the future and also move into vehicles as well. But it does suit storage, energy storage at this stage. Flow batteries you'll start to see more and more of appear in storage and storage. Any other questions?
No, that was my question. It's all right.
Sure.
I was going to ask you about flow batteries, but someone else did, so that was good.
Cool, no, there's one behind you. I'll take this one first.
You mentioned the fact that there's essentially now, well, just from this discussion, there's at least 3 different standards for charging. The CHAdeMO, the SAE, etc. There seems very little discussion, though, behind that in terms of commercial arrangements of, okay, I roll in with my Nissan Leaf and plug in. What's a fast charge going to cost me? And just aside from where the energy is being sourced from, it's also, okay, from a consumer's perspective, what's it going to cost to get a charge?
Okay, so I'll just do a quick overview first of those different standards of energy charging, and then we'll talk a little bit about the energy cost and that as well. Yes, we've got 2 main ones. Well, we've got 3 main ones at the moment, haven't we? 3. This is the fast charging systems. We have the Tesla system that they've developed their own, which is for their own vehicles only. The Tesla superchargers. No, you can't use an adapter and use a Tesla system because with the Tesla system, it actually identifies the VIN of the vehicle when you connect. So you would have to spoof a Tesla car on those to connect to it anyway to do that. But the supercharged system is unique. Then we've got the Japanese system, which is CHAdeMO. On those, right through Japan and gone into a lot of Europe. On those, a good fast charging system that's been available for several years on those. And so the Nissan that we saw has the Japanese, the CHAdeMO fast charging system. And then the third one was the combo, the SAE combo system, which has come more out of Europe on those. It's been used by Bmw and then on the i3. Has a different socket and that as well. So we've got the 3 main systems that are going through at the moment. There are adapters available for the different systems and that at the moment. You can, if you have your Model S, your Tesla car, you can buy an adapter so you can charge it on CHAdeMO or the SAE combo. So there's adapters available to do that. So, and the same with the other way around, CHAdeMO and SAE combo, there's adapters that cross between them. It's only if you want to use the Tesla system, you can't if you have another car because it's only proprietary to theirs. So they got around that with a few adapters, but that's what happens, you end up with all these competing systems on those, and it would be nice if they were all the same. They're not. And then you're saying the cost. At the moment, generally it's been introduced that charging systems have been free, that the electricity cost has not been a major portion of the charging systems. So you'll see the charging stations around Melbourne that most, if not all of them, are free. I think they all are. And those, but I think we'll see in the future that they'll start charging. They'll start paying. You'll have to start paying to use the charging systems. Is a good way of putting it. So Tesla is already talking about that with the Model 3 on those, that people using the Model 3 will have to pay to use the supercharged system. But also in Europe, there's been also charging networks that have started off now that are charging, you have to pay to use their charging systems. Some of the ones that are developed in Europe. So that'll probably be the way that it's heading on those. So the cost, we don't expect to be high on those. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
We talked about the impact of high current draw in electric cars on battery life. Have you heard anything about the high charge rates having an effect on battery life?
On those, yes, now that we're starting to see with some of these fast charging systems that charge in half an hour, and that on the battery life. There hasn't been reports come through of a lot of batteries being affected by fast charging. There are articles saying that we think that it might reduce their battery life on those. I can find quite a few articles talking about that and saying, with concerns about will fast charging reduce your battery life. But no, there's been no research or figures that have come out that it actually does occur. So we don't think that it'll have a minor or no effect at the fast charging side of things.
What if you don't have a carport and you have to park on the street? What options have you got there?
Well, that's very true, isn't it? What if you live in a flat or a unit on those, and so it's going to be a problem. It's very much true. And I could see that new blocks of flats and new blocks of units and those will have charging systems installed with them for the people who are living in these areas. So that issue needs to be addressed. And it's currently a problem at the moment on those, that if you want to buy an electric car, where are you going to charge it? It can be a problem at the moment. Another thing that will come through in the future is the autonomous cars on those. So in those cases, these cars, autonomous cars, you'll probably be able to phone up a car and have a car delivered to your place instead of booking a taxi. You book an autonomous car and it'll ride out front, and then you go for whatever your trip is. So I think in the future, or we're looking further ahead, aren't we really, that in the future there will be many people who won't bother owning a car on those. They'll be involved with autonomous cars in a car share or a taxi, where you just ring up and book a car, and that will become more relevant more often. And that may solve some of the problems there, somewhere where you don't have anywhere to garage or store your car or charge it. So.
Well, I wonder if you've got any ideas of how much does it cost to charge a car? Can you charge it slowly overnight, or I believe you can go slow, medium or fast, depending on
okay.
where you are.
To charge a typical car like this, say like the Nissan Leaf, on those typical type car, we'll go back to the standard Leaf that you get now. Charging it would be what, $1.20?
$4 for 24 kilowatt hours.
So how much?
Cost me about $1.50 for 20 kilowatt hours.
Yeah. So what price did that add? It's up to about $4. So yeah, we've got $4 there to charge for your 135 kilometre range. That's typically the electric cost on it. And that will vary slightly from car to car, but not a lot. Going to overnight charging, things like that, well, the cost is the same on those. Overnight charging is convenient at home on those, and then in the garage. It's probably, with overnight charging, you don't need an electric vehicle service equipment on those, and some of these smaller cars like the Leaf and that. If you want to overnight charge a Model S, you do. You need an electric vehicle service equipment, which is $400 to $500. But with the Nissan Leaf, you can charge it overnight from a standard 10 or 15 amp power plant. Yes.
Does the range over the years get reduced?
Yes, it does.
How much?
With an electric car, we consider that the battery has reached end of life when you've got 80% of your range, and that's just a standard thing through the industry. So your range will be full when you buy new, and then it will steadily reduce at a fairly even rate. It may vary not quite evenly, but it will steadily reduce. And then maybe after 8 or 10 years, you may be at the end of your life of your battery, we consider you've got 80% capacity or 80% of range. Some people might still keep driving their cars, without replacing the batteries at that stage on those, or they may consider to, replace the battery on those and time for a new one.
Do they have like a knee where you know, they deteriorate rapidly after the 80% point?
Well, it's an interesting thing that's coming through with this particular car here, the Bmw I3. When they designed the car, they made the battery out of 8 modules on those. So this one's got 8 modules in it. So they don't have to replace the whole battery on those. Quite often it's one cell or maybe 2 or 3 cells that will degrade faster than the others. So, you know, you're aged for a 10-year battery life. You've actually only got a couple of cells and that have degraded. So the i3, you can actually have one section of the battery changed rather than changing the whole battery on those, and that the other manufacturers have done. So, so you're not necessarily up for a full battery replacement on those at the end of the life. They'll offer the other alternatives as well. With the Maxi scooter here, and that the battery design that I use, you can change individual cells, individual blocks, and that in it. So I sell these to customers and those, so when their battery gets old and they need 2 or 3 blocks replaced, they're $90 each on those for each battery block on that. And then we then recondition the battery by identifying the weak blocks and replacing them.
Are the blocks in series or parallel or a combination?
They're all in series. So they're all in series, but I know the Maxi scooter has 35 battery blocks in series, and those within the scooter.
Nice round number, 35.
Beg your pardon?
Nice round number, 35.
Yes, I suppose with the maths that seems to be where it ended up. It's 132 volt bus voltage. Seemed to be how it ended up.
How do we know the battery life is become 80%, or is there any warranty if it goes to only 5 years then reach to 80%?
Okay, the manufacturers offer warranties on their batteries on that in their cars. It's not usually for 8 or 10 years on those because they know the battery's going to wear out, but they may offer a warranty of 3 years or 5 years on that on their battery life. When you know that the battery's coming to the end of its life, because the car will show a reduced range on those on its display. So if you're buying a second-hand electric car, on those you would check the range on the car when you buy it, either by driving it or by you may be able to check it just by what's indicated on the display. On those on the Nissan Leaf, on those you'll get less bars showing on the display when the battery starts to deteriorate. Are there any Leaf owners here? Nissan Leaf owners here? No, we've got a few in the other group. Okay. I could probably tell you that, but yeah, I'll check that when buying a second-hand car.
I was up in Cairns last year, and a lot of the taxis up there are Priuses, and I was surprised. And interesting what the guy was saying, they were getting over 300,000 k's out of batteries. And the running cost was half of a standard Ford 911. So all the taxis are going to the bottom.
Yeah, what Toyota has done there is quite interesting on those, and that with the Prius and with their other hybrid cars, they haven't taken up lithium-ion technology at all on those. They're using the nickel metal hydride batteries and that in their cars. And Toyota have done their homework and they've engineered their batteries very well on those. They don't use the full capacity of the nickel metal hydride battery, and they don't overstress it, and that within the vehicle. And yeah, they're getting 300,000 kilometres on those out of the nickel metal hydride batteries in the Toyota hybrid cars. So yeah, that's a good thing. And that battery technology, if the battery is sized sufficiently large and well designed, you're looking at more than 8 years. You're looking at 10, 12, 15 year life out of some of these batteries.
It's not just in Cairns either. I've noticed in Darwin's almost exclusively Priuses for the taxis over there.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know whether it's an initiative by the Northern Territory government, but a lot of the government vehicles over there also Priuses or Leafs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. I think what's currently available at the moment, the hybrid cars are very good on those. They, they're a good choice on those. They have advantages, with their fuel consumption and those, and I think they're an excellent choice.
I think there was an initial sort of program of Prius taxis up there, and that probably led to a lot of people doing it because they realised, it was working for them.
Well, Toyota produced a hybrid version of the Corolla now, and then we have the Camry hybrid. So, we're seeing more hybrid cars than that to choose from coming from Toyota as well as the other manufacturers. And those, but some of the things that we're seeing, Volkswagen, for instance, we've had the Dieselgate problem with the diesels on those, and the terrible things that's happened with what Volkswagen's done, the implications in Europe and what's happened in the US, and I'm quite sure that Volkswagen's not the only company in that's involved in this. There are others as well, and that with their diesel vehicles. And so Volkswagen announced last month, I think it was a 9 or 10 billion euro battery plant that Volkswagen is going to move into the electric vehicles on those and move away from their diesel after what's happened. And the battery plant they announced was in China on those. China is one of the largest emerging markets for electric vehicles. The government is heavily behind electric vehicles. There's BYD and a number of other Chinese manufacturers who are already making electric vehicles in China. And if you want to build a car in China, you have to have your manufacturing plant there. On those, they shield using tariffs and that for other manufacturers coming in. So China has very much local production, and so Volkswagen has announced a 9 billion euro battery plant to be built in China, which is very large. Almost a large factory, one of the largest announced.
Well, seems like that's it tonight. So thank you very much, Paul, for presenting a very interesting talk, and it's a show of appreciation you have.